today's video, I am going to be reacting to your NFL season hot takes. Subscribe and like the video if you do go on to enjoy. Let's hop into it. Joe Burrow is already QB1 in the NFL. So I love Joe Burrow. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. For him to be QB1, then you're probably going to put him over the likes of Lamar Jackson, over the likes of a Patrick Mahomes, and over, of course, Josh Allen as well. I definitely think Burrow is in the conversation. That being said, because of the injury history and because of the consistent dominance of those other quarterbacks, I just have to put those three quarterbacks above Burrow. Right now, if I had to give you a list, I think it would be Burrow at 4, Mahomes probably at 3 just based off the regular season, but he's the best quarterback in the playoffs by a mile. And then Josh Allen, Lamar is like 1, 2. It's really difficult to tell. But honestly, any given week, those top 4 can be in any particular order. Joe Burrow is a special quarterback. He just has to stay healthy. And unfortunately, the Bengals haven't done a great job at surrounding him with talent, or else he would be somebody that would be constantly in the playoffs and pushing for titles every single year. So is this a good hot take? It's not a bad hot take. It wouldn't be my hot take. I think he's a good quarterback. Probably not QB1 though, but some people might agree with you. The Jaden sophomore slump take is such a casual, lazy take, just because people saw Stroud do it. Now, I want to address the back end of that. I don't think Stroud had a sophomore slump. I think in general, the roster for Houston just wasn't as good, especially on the offensive end, or maybe not as good, but it just wasn't up to the task. Plus, they dealt with injuries. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon missed a lot of times. The offensive line just was not good last year. So for Stroud, I don't think Stroud had a sophomore slump. I think it was definitely a down year from his rookie year, but he still had some good numbers. And by the way, they still made it to the second round of the playoffs, which a lot of other quarterbacks have not done so. Looking at you, Justin Herbert. Looking at you, Dak Prescott. Who else can I roast here? Yeah, you get my point. I can't think of anybody else. But there's a lot of quarterbacks that haven't made it to the second round, and CJ Stroud has definitely done that. Now, for the Jaden Daniels thing, I don't think it's a casual, lazy take. Now, I think if you are saying that he is for sure going to have a sophomore slump, then yeah, it's probably a casual, lazy take that doesn't have a ton of merit to it. But if you are throwing out the idea that there is a possibility of a sophomore slump, then I think you're just being objectively correct. We have seen great quarterbacks have incredible rookie seasons, and then in their sophomore years, they're not as good as what they were in their rookie season. That doesn't mean they're going to be a bad quarterback for years to come. A good example of this, like we said, CJ Stroud, but another one, Dak Prescott. I just talked about him. Had a great rookie of the year-like season, and that following year, the Cowboys weren't as good, and Dak was just not as good, and that hasn't really hurt Dak. Dak is the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL, so he's doing totally fine. So I don't think that Jaden will have a sophomore slump. It's just a true possibility, and it's an objective thing that could happen. Commanders go all the way. This is kind of in line with what we talked about in the last hot take. Look, the Commanders have a chance to go all the way. I don't think they're the odds-on favorite. I think there's a lot of other teams in the NFC that are better than the Commanders. I'm looking at Detroit, if they can stay healthy defensively. I'm looking at Philadelphia. I think they're really good. I think the Rams are a better roster. And you can make the argument of like a Minnesota if JJ's really good, a Green Bay if they're really good. So I think Washington's definitely in, the top 5 conversations, but it's an older roster that has a lot of experience, really good coaching. They're going to be dependent on guys like Marshawn Lattimore to take a big step forward. And if a sophomore slump does happen for Jaden Daniels, then this is a complete just not going to happen. For the Commanders to go all the way, they need Daniels to be even better from what he was last year, and they might need a little bit of help along the way, such as not having to face Philadelphia in the playoffs. I don't think this is going to happen. It's definitely possible. Like, they're one of the top contenders in the NFC. I just personally don't think it's going to end up happening. Right now, I would put a lot of other teams in front of the Commanders. That's not to say the Commanders can't make it to the NFC Championship game, but I would put money on another team to make it over Washington. Baker Mayfield gets MVP. Hashtag Go Bucks. So clearly this is a Buccaneers fan, so he might be a little bit biased, but let's talk about it. Look, Baker Mayfield had an incredible year last year, had over 40 touchdowns, over 4,500 passing yards. The one thing that really knocked him was the lack of crazy team success. They made the playoffs, they won the division, but they didn't win like 13 or 14 games. Whereas you look at like a Buffalo or for Josh Allen, and then Lamar a few years ago, like those guys consistently got over 11 to 12 plus wins. The other thing that kind of hurts Baker Mayfield, and fair or unfair, he's a bit of a gunslinger that makes some bad throws here and there. So at times he can kind of hurt his team. He had 16 turnovers last year, as well as a couple fumbles. And even outside of that, I do think there is I don't really know how to word this. There's a certain aura you have to to be an MVP guy. So what I mean by that is the guys that have the aura, the CJs, the Jaden Daniels of the world, the guys that have won it, Mahomes, Burrow, well, not Burrow, but maybe eventually Burrow, Allen, Lamar Jackson, like all those guys have something to them. I think Baker's got the swag, and I'm sure there could be a movement if he has an incredible year next year to get him in the conversations, but I just don't think a lot of people are really going to take him overly serious. Like, you look at 2023, and I'm sorry I keep bringing up the Cowboys. I promise there's no Cowboys hot take on here. But Dak Prescott objectively had better statistics than Lamar Jackson and fairly similar team success. But the aura difference in the media attention is going to clearly lean towards Lamar Jackson, even though Dak is the Cowboys quarterback. There's just something that does kind of happen objectively in everyone's brain that allows certain players to get a bit of a nod over some other players. And sometimes it's not even really, the numbers or the play on the field. Sometimes it's just how you feel about a guy. Now, real quick, before we get to my next hot take, I am planning on doing a hot takes video after every single week of the NFL season. So if you want to hear your voice be heard and have a hot take in the video, you can drop it down in the comments of any of my videos, or make sure to post some community stuff where you can look at it there. Broncos make it to the AFC Championship game. Now, look, I'm a huge fan of the Broncos in 2025. I think they have, on paper, the best defense in the league, and I also think, offensively speaking, they truly could have a top 10 units. When it comes to them making the AFC Championship game, I think it's a little bit far-fetched, but I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility. I would put the Chiefs still above them. I would still clearly have the Ravens and probably the Bills over them. Texans, maybe so, maybe not. I think it could be a pretty close matchup right there. So right then and there, it would take a certain route for the Broncos to make it to the AFC Championship game. That route would be something along the lines of a relatively easy wildcard matchup. Relatively easy as in you're probably not winning the division, but maybe you get Houston in round 1 or Indianapolis if they win the division. Or if you do end up winning the division somehow, having an easy wildcard opponent. Then in round 2, you probably want to avoid Kansas City and you probably want to avoid the Ravens. If you can get that Buffalo matchup, and yes, I know Buffalo killed them in the playoffs last year, but it's a new season. So if you get that Buffalo matchup, you might feel a little bit better, but I wouldn't feel great. So just in general, I don't think this one's likely. I think the best the Broncos do is the second round, but that is fine. They're still a very young team, and they're going to be good for many years to come. Carolina wins 10 games and makes a real run in the playoffs. BY9 finishes top 5 in MVP voting. Now, recently, I just did a video on the Carolina Panthers where I talked about why this team is actually improving. But if you watch the video, you would know that I do not think the Carolina Panthers will be making the playoffs in 2025. And I don't necessarily think that's a spicy or hot take by no stretch. What is a hot take, though, is saying Bryce Young, who's now in his 3rd year and got benched last year and had a couple of good games late in the season, finishes top 5 in MVP votings, and that the Carolina Panthers win 10 games. Look, I'm high on Carolina. I think they can get 6+ wins. But I think they're heavily capped at like 8 wins maximum. This defense still has very legit problems. They're relying on guys like Nick Scorin and Princely Amon-Mielen to be go-to pass rushers early into their careers. JC Horn has not proven the ability to stay healthy. Derek Brown just had a major injury last year. Can he return to form? What does a secondary look like around JC with all the new faces there? There's just a lot of question marks with the Panthers defense, and with the offense, I just cannot buy fully into Bryce Young quite yet. I need to see him stretch out great play for the entire season. I have not seen that so far. Really bad rookie year, terrible start to his sophomore year, good end to last year. So if he can carry that good stretch we saw late in the season to an entire 2025 season, then 8 or 9 games is possible. 10 feels very rich, and a real run in the playoffs also feels even more rich because they're not a better team than any of the top contending playoff teams in the NFC. Now, Bryce finishing top 5 in MVP voting, it's possible if Bryce has a great year with some great numbers and the media catches all the attention on Bryce. It's possible, but it's also fairly unlikely. Again, we have seen great play from him last year, but it was like a super small sample size. Outside of that, it's been pretty darn bad. So I'm hoping this is true because I like Carolina and I like Bryce Young. I say hold your horses and give it 1 or 2 more years, though. Jaden Daniels takes over as the 3rd quarterback in the NFL. This is our 3rd Commanders hot take of the video, and this is maybe the spiciest of them all. So in order for Jaden to be the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL, he's going to have to be better than one of Lamar, Josh, Burrow, or Mahomes. And I just don't see the case here. I love Jaden Daniels. I think he was incredible in his rookie year. But Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson are all future Hall of Famers. They are superstars. Now, there's a caveat here. If one of those quarterbacks gets hurt and misses the entire season, then Daniels, by default, could end up being the fourth best quarterback in the NFL. And let's say Mahomes has a down year next year. Maybe Daniels does become that third guy. It's possible, but that's a caveat. That's a bit of a stretch. I think Daniels is pretty secure as a guy within 5 to 10, somewhere in that range. Maybe you have Stafford or Herbert over him. Maybe you have a Goff over him. That's all fine. I think Daniels is probably better than some of those guys. I'd right now put Daniels either 5th, 6th, or 7th, somewhere in that range. So he would have to elevate his game next year to enter into the top 5. But right now, I just don't think it's possible if Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and Lamar stay healthy for Jaden to enter into that territory. At least not now. Now, 2 years from now, maybe we can revisit this. For now, though, I'm going to say don't have those expectations quite yet because he's only played in 1 season. The Texans take a leap forward and become the second best team in the AFC, making the championship game and losing to the Chiefs. Well, let me start this off. I pray to God the Chiefs do not make the Super Bowl this year because that would be kind of boring to see the same AFC team for the past 3 or 4 years now. And I want to say this, I actually do think the Texans are a good enough team to be one of the top teams in the AFC. When you look at the AFC right now, there is a top dog pretty clearly in Baltimore, at least from a pure talent perspective. Then there's that second team, and it's probably one of Buffalo or Kansas City, or maybe Denver or LA, if you can kind of conversate those guys in here. But if you do look at the Bills, did the Bills get drastically better from last year? Not necessarily. And if you look at Kansas City, did they get better from last year? Probably not. They lost a couple pieces. So there is the potential for both those teams to take a small step back, which could allow a Houston to take a step forward and finish second in the AFC. It's feasible. It's possible. Again, it's one of those things that I don't think will happen, but it could happen. Drake May will push for MVP and get the Patriots to the AFC Championship. Back-to-back AFC Championships, and this one feels a little bit more far-fetched than the Houston Texans one. I know the Patriots did a lot of work this offseason, and I think those were good moves, but they're still another 1 to 2 years away from really pushing for AFC Championship games or MVPs or even just playoff spots. The offensive line still has a ton of question marks. I like some of the receivers there. I love Stephon Diggs, obviously, and I think Kyle Williams has talent, but what does the other guys look like? What does the running back room look like? Does Trayvon Henderson become the full-time guy? I think their defense is really good. If you say the Patriots will make the playoffs, I don't think that's a hot take. I think it's pretty possible, especially with their head coach. But Drake May pushing for MVP and making the AFC Championship game feels like you took one big leap forward when they just need to take a step forward. Now, we can revisit this conversation in 2026, 2027, then we can have the conversation. For now, let's pump the brakes a tad bit here. The Rams make the Super Bowl. They were the only team this playoff run to challenge the Eagles, and they only got better. If you watched me throughout the offseason, any Rams video I talk about, you guys know that I'm pretty dang high on LA. And in fact, the Rams are truly a top 5 contender for the Super Bowl in my personal opinion. So for this one, I think it's totally valid, and I think it's definitely possible. They gave Philly a true run for their money, and I thought last year in the backstretch of the season, they looked really, really good. And now you add in a Devontae Adams. Hopefully Stafford can stay healthy. You get more progression from this defense. I still think the secondary is missing a CB1, but I think they're good enough. You pair that with a great defensive line, a great head coach. Puka Nacua is there. Kyron just got paid, by the way. So there is a possibility. I think they're truly a top contender. JJ McCarthy goes on a tear and gets the Vikings to the NFC Championship game. It does sort of feel like Minnesota is right on the cusp of being a consistent Super Bowl contender. It feels like they're just always 1 or 2 pieces away for like the last 2 to 3 years. And maybe that piece was a difference-making quarterback, potentially like a JJ McCarthy. Now, if you've been keeping up with some of the reports about JJ in training camp and how he's been struggling, look, you've heard it from me multiple times. I don't give an F about what the hell these guys say about training camp. Training camp means nothing to me. It means nothing. The only thing I want to hear, did our guys stay healthy? And maybe we had a breakout guy here or there. That's all. But the amount of times you hear about a guy having a shitty camp and then he goes out there and balls in the NFL season, it happens every year. And I'm just not worried about it. So the guys who are overreacting to poor training camp numbers or this or that, stop. Just stop. Don't worry about training camp. It does not matter. This is where you want to make the mistakes, not in the season. Could JJ go on a tear and make it to the AFC Championship game? Possibly. It's one of those things where JJ has to have a great, let's be honest, rookie season, he has to be of the likes of a CJ, a Ben Roethlisberger, a Dak, a Herbert, his rookie year, and of course, Jaden Daniels. He has to be on par with that. If he is, it's possible. I think he won't be. I think ultimately the Vikings just probably need to take it one step at a time, get to the playoffs, gain experience, and then in 2026, that's really when you're pushing for that championship. Daniel Jones gets the starting spot and leads the Colts to a competent record similar to what Gardner Minshew did in 2023. As an avid Anthony Richardson supporter, I hope this is not true, but I think it's totally possible. Look, I've heard some good things about AR in training camp. I know I just went on a rant about training camp. When it comes to Richardson, I just want to hear anything positive. So I've heard some decent things, but I haven't seen it on the field. We'll see in the preseason if he gets some chances, or we'll see in week 1. I don't know, nor do I care right now. Regardless, though, look, it's definitely possible. Daniel Jones has shown good play here and there, especially I think in 2022 with the Giants where they made the playoffs. I think he's a good fit within this system. There's so much talent surrounding him that I just feel like he could succeed in this system. They're legit 4 deep at receiver. They got one of the best backs in the NFL, a new tight end in Tyler Warren, a stout offensive line, and a defense that's very improved. The Colts have a good roster. It's one of the more underrated units out there. It's just they have not had a serious competent quarterback since like Andrew Luck. So for Daniel Jones to step in there and have a Gardner Minshew-like season, yeah, it's totally possible. Fingers crossed, though, that Richardson does work out. The 2013 Seattle Seahawks have returned. Look, man, I like what the Seahawks team did defensively. They have versatility. They have big size, athletes that can roam, make plays. I think their defensive line has depth to it. I think that you have different guys that are good at different things, guys that can all get to the quarterback, but also guys that can stuff the run. This Seahawks defense is looking pretty nasty on paper, and I just frankly don't know if there's a hole to it. If I had to say what their hole is, maybe it would be that you get some inconsistent play here and there from Reek Woolen, and, maybe there's some other question marks within the secondary, but the Seahawks defense is pretty good. 2013 Seahawks, maybe not that good, but pretty darn close. I think it's definitely a possibility. Geno Smith will finish top 3 in MVP voting. Look, I'm a Geno guy. This ain't happening. I mean, it could. I don't think it will, though. The Raiders have a lot of different issues they have to work with. I do think the Raiders will be an improved team. They're going to be a heavy run team that's going to rely on Genty. That'll limit Geno a little bit there. Geno could be good. He could maybe be like top 10 in MVP voting. That wouldn't shock me, but top 3, I'm not sure about that one. JSN, first team All-Pro. Look, I'm just going to say it now. JSN stocks in fantasy football, buy into it right now. If he is available in, let's say, a 10-man league, if he's available in like round 3 or 4, take JSN. This dude is going to get so much work this upcoming season. First team All-Pro is a little bit rich. I think second team All-Pro is possible. I think Pro Bowl is possible. I think being considered like a top 15 wide receiver 1, very possible. First team All-Pro, though, you got to beat CD. You got to beat Chase, Jefferson, potentially Tyreek Hill, AJ Brown. You got Malik Neighbors in the conversation. You got Brian Thomas Jr. The first team All-Pro feels a little rich, but Pro Bowl, second team All-Pro, top 15 wide receiver 1, for sure a possibility. If you're in fantasy football, I seriously consider taking JSN pretty darn early. Cardinals shocked the world and beat out the Bills in the Super Bowl. Oddly specific here, but this would actually be kind of a cool matchup. I love Arizona. I think they have a good roster, and the Buffalo Bills make it to a Super Bowl. That being said, it would feel a little bit sad to see Buffalo lose another Super Bowl, but still be a fun matchup. Now, for Arizona to get there, it feels a little bit, I guess, far-fetched. Marvin Harrison Jr. would have to truly become, I'm talking 1,500 passing or receiving yards. Like, he'd have to have that good of a second year, which is possible. I think he's very talented, but he has to be such an overwhelmingly dominant force next year for this Cardinals team to ultimately get at that level. They would also need a Will Johnson to be great in his rookie year and a Walter Nolan to really step in and dominate the defensive line. It feels far-fetched. I think that right now the goal for the Cardinals is just to make the playoffs. And, if you can win a playoff game, cool. Super Bowl, not sure. And even then, the Bills making the Super Bowl also kind of, we'll see. It feels like Baltimore's one to beat there, but it could be the Bills. I don't know. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Love you guys. Peace.